how iPhones made a surprising comeback in China. For almost 2 years, it looked like Apple's dominance in China was fading. Month after month, reports showed declining sales. Local brands like Huawei and Xiaomi were gaining ground. Analysts predicted that Apple's grip on the Chinese smartphone market might finally be slipping. And then everything flipped. In its latest earnings report, Apple revealed something no one expected. Revenue in China jumped 38% year over year in the last quarter. That's not small growth. That's a massive rebound. Even more surprising, this comeback came after 18 straight months of declining sales between 2024 and early 2025. So what happened? During Apple's earnings call, CEO Tim Cook said the company set a new record for iPhone upgrades among Chinese customers. Even more interesting, Apple saw double-digit growth in people switching from other operating systems to iOS. In simple terms, Chinese users weren't just upgrading, they were switching to iPhone. For a market that had increasingly favored domestic brands, this was unexpected. The competition was strong. This makes Apple's comeback even more fascinating. Over the past few years, Chinese brands didn't just improve. They became extremely competitive. Huawei released a $2,800 trifold smartphone before most global brands even entered that category. Xiaomi, Vivo, and Oppo launched premium flagship phones with advanced AI features and powerful camera systems. Many of these devices technically offered more cutting-edge hardware than the iPhone. And let's be honest, in mainland China, Apple Intelligence features still aren't fully available. So Apple didn't even have its full AI advantage there. On paper, local brands look stronger. But markets don't always move based on spec sheets. Apple didn't win with flashy tech. Here's the most interesting part of the story. Apple didn't respond by releasing a folding phone. It didn't launch a radical new design. It didn't try to outspec the competition. Instead, it did something much simpler. It released a powerful, well-designed iPhone at the right price. Experts say the base model, iPhone 17, played a huge role in this comeback. Traditionally, most early iPhone buyers gravitate toward the Pro and Pro Max models. But in 2025, the standard iPhone 17 offered a much bigger upgrade compared to the iPhone 16 than usual. Features that were once exclusive to Pro models trickled down to the base model. That meant regular users didn't need to pay extra for a premium version to feel like they were getting something new and meaningful. For many Chinese buyers, that made upgrading feel worth it again. The price strategy was genius. But the real masterstroke may have been pricing. The Chinese government launched a massive economic stimulus program in 2025, spending around $43 billion to subsidize domestic purchases of electronics, appliances, and cars. Smartphones priced under 6,000 RMB, about $860, qualified for up to a 15% discount. Now here's the key detail. Apple priced the iPhone 17 in China at 5,999 RMB, 1 yuan below the threshold. That meant buyers could receive a government subsidy. That pricing decision wasn't accidental. It allowed Apple to attract price-sensitive customers without officially discounting the iPhone. The government essentially helped lower the price. For many buyers who were already considering an upgrade, this was the perfect moment. The upgrade cycle helped. There's another important factor. Apple's last massive sales peak in China came during the iPhone 13 era. That was about 3 to 4 years ago. Smartphone upgrade cycles typically run around that time frame. So in 2025, millions of Chinese iPhone 13 users were naturally entering their upgrade window. They weren't switching because of hype. They were switching because it was time. When you combine natural upgrade timing with a well-priced device and a government subsidy, momentum builds quickly. Huawei's timing also mattered. Apple's competitors didn't suddenly fail. In fact, brands like Xiaomi, Vivo, and Oppo continued performing well, especially in the premium segment. The one major exception was Huawei. Huawei released its flagship device later than usual, at the end of November. There were also early supply shortages. Huawei is Apple's biggest rival in China's high-end market. With Huawei temporarily limited in availability, Apple had more breathing room. Timing in the tech industry is everything. And this time, timing favored Apple. Brand power still wins. Perhaps the most important lesson here is about brand loyalty. Chinese consumers have shown strong support for domestic brands in recent years. There's national pride involved. There's innovation happening locally. But despite all of that, many consumers still gravitated toward Apple. Why? Because Apple's brand remains powerful. The ecosystem is strong. The design is consistent. The resale value is stable. The user experience feels familiar and reliable. For many buyers, incremental technical improvements from competitors weren't enough to outweigh Apple's overall brand appeal. Sometimes, good enough combined with strong brand trust beats cutting-edge innovation. Apple's global strength adds stability. This rebound in China isn't happening in isolation. Apple's U.S. market share recently climbed to 69%, a record high. Globally, Apple is entering 2026 from a position of strength. At a time when the industry could face turbulence due to memory chip shortages and rising production costs. If smartphone prices increase industry-wide, Apple's pricing power and supply chain strength may give an advantage over competitors. That puts additional pressure on brands that rely heavily on aggressive pricing strategies. The bigger lesson for Chinese brands, for Chinese smartphone manufacturers, this is a tough lesson. They've built impressive hardware. They've launched foldables. They've pushed AI integration. And yet, Apple regained momentum with relatively modest improvements. A better display, refined performance, competitive pricing, and smart timing. Breaking Apple's hold on premium customers remains extremely difficult. As one analyst put it, it's unclear how brands like Oppo, Vivo, or Xiaomi can truly break Apple's stranglehold on loyal users. That doesn't mean they won't try. But it does show how deeply embedded Apple has become in consumer psychology, not just in the US, but in China as well. Is this comeback permanent? Now the big question. Is this a long-term shift or just a temporary rebound? Huawei is still strong. Chinese innovation is accelerating. AI features will continue improving. But for now, Apple has proven something important. It doesn't always need to lead in flashy innovation. Sometimes, strategic pricing, timing, and brand loyalty are enough. After 18 months of decline, Apple didn't just stabilize in China. It surged. And in one of the most competitive smartphone markets in the world, that's no small achievement.